signore. Su, che alzatele. Mira. Ahora mismo andrá, chicos. Via, dai! Veloce!
A city more accustomed to the golden sun said that the ice storm was hit by an unusual hailstorm that covered its streets and the thick layer of ice. The sudden downpour, which lasted then an hour, brought daily life to the southern Celt, forced residents and tourists to try and understand the extent of the damage. Meteorologists incidents confirmed the hailstorm was caused by the collisions of warm Mediterranean air masses with a sharp cold front from the northern Europe. Strong updrafts formed hailstorm the size of a golf ball, which damaged roofs, smashed shop windows, and left cars covered in damp. It caused chaos and transformation. Several metro stations were forced to close due to flooding in major roads turned into rivers and a melted slush. Emergency service reported rescued dozens of people trapped in their cars, while firefighters rushed to clear a fallen bridge and the restore blocked drainage system. In 30 years of service, I have never seen a room safer so much from ice, said a fire brigade representative. Hospitals across the capital treated dozens of people who were injured after slipper of ice sidewalks. Tourists visited landmarks such as Pizza Venezia and Spanish Steps described surreal scene. We thought it was snowing, but the hail became so heavy that it hurt, recalled Anna, a tourist from Germany. Farmers in Lazio Sicily, Italy's largest island, has been hit one of the strongest storms in the recent times. One of the night of June 27, several weather warnings brought more than 180 mm of rainfall in just 20 hours, more than the region usually received in entire month. This was hit area where Palermo, Catania, Anginda, and Messina were the hardest hit. Authority confirmed that at least 3 people died as a result of the flooding electrocutions. Among the victims was a 45-year-old man from the town of Biancivaga, who was trapped in this car where sudden flood inundated in low light and presented. In Palermo, emergency service responded more than 14 calls in one night. More than 120 homes were reportedly flooded in historic districts of Calza and Balero. In the town of Aguirre and Mount Etna, landslides to the evacuation more than 17 residents, while the rescue of fallen trees injured several persons. Power outage affected nearly 30,000 homes. An emergency company, Aeneas, sent dozens of repair crews on the island. Rain severe between Catania and Syracuse was suspended, and yet Falcon Belen Airport 15 flights were delayed or diverted due to heavy rain and the wind gusts exceeded 19 km/h. The Italian city of Palermo was left in shock after the severe storm swept through the Sicilian capital, bringing torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and flash floods that paralyzed the city. Within hours, streets turned into raging rivers, swept away across the trapped residents in their homes. Emergency services were inundated with a call, rescued dozens of people from flooded cars in the basement. It was like a waterfall rushing throughout the streets, said a local shopkeeper. Describe it now if the store was destroyed in minutes. Hospitals reported an influx of potent savory from the injured and hypothermia. Authorities confirmed several casualties and thousands of people were left without power as the power lines collapsed under the weight of fallen trees. The city historic districts, usually bustling with the tourists, were eerily empty as residents hid in their homes. The storm also disrupted vital infrastructure. Palermo Airport temporarily suspended flights and ferry service were halted due to wave crashed onto the coast. In rural area around the city, farmland was destroyed onto olive groves and vineyards were flooded, raising fears of significant losses to agriculture. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the warm water of the Mediterranean Sea, which follow unstable air masses. Conditions likely to the border effects of the climate change. Italy's Civil Protection Agency warned that extreme weather conditions are becoming the new normal and they call it to immediate investment to flood protection and the early warning system. Local authorities declared a state of emergency and the government promising to allocate funds to deal with the aftermath of the national disaster. Volunteers joined to brigade the police to clear blocked roads, but recovery expected to take weeks to even months. Parts of the southern Italy are trying to recover from the torrential rain that caused devastating flood in Sicily. Flooding cities, blocked roads, and leaving thousands of people without electricity. Officials have called the disaster a national emergency. Within hours, the streets of Palermo, Catania, and Messina turned into raging rivers that swept away cars and flooded the first floor to homes and businesses. The Italian Civil Protection Agency reported that more than 115 millimeters of rain fell in less than 20 hours, an amount that usually falls over several months. Local resident Maria Russo told reporters, "The water came so fast that in a matter of minutes my streets turned into a river. We didn't have time to have anything." Emergency service rescue families standing on rooftops and firefighters worked throughout the night clearing debris and pumping water out of hospitals and schools. At least 20,000 households were left without power and many villages remain isolated after landslides blocked acid roads. Authorities confirmed several injuries, at least 3 deaths, although death toll could rise in such countries. Rome, Italy. Rome was thrown into chaos as a sudden violent hailstorm struck the city, transforming its cobblestone streets into rivers of ice and leaving a scene of destruction and astonishment. The storm arrived without warning late in the afternoon, bringing hailstones the size of large cones, thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. Meteorologists from Italy's National Meteorological Agency described the phenomenon as one of the most intense collective storms to hit the Lazio region in recent years. Senior meteorologist Dr. Luca Moretti stated, "The combination of extreme heat and the sudden cold front triggered explosive atmospheric instability. Within the minutes, the sky darkened, and a hail pounded the city with a different force. Vehicles were damaged, windshields shattered, and roofs became impossible under a layer of ice. Fire departments received over 1,400 emergency calls, responded to rescue trapped drivers and pump out water from subway station and underground parking garage. Rome Civil Protection Agency urged residents to stay indoors and flash flood hits the San Giovanni Trastevere. powerful hailstorm swept across Rome on a Monday evening, transforming in the eternal city into surreal winter scene in the middle of autumn. The violent burst of the weather struck without warning, pelting the capital with the ice stones of the size of a marble 8 in some era's golf ball. Within the minutes, streets, pieces and parked cars were buried under the thick layer of ice, forcing traffic and standstill and overwhelming the city drainage systems. It was like a blizzard, said local resident Marco DeSantis, who was driving near Pisa Veneto where the storm hit. The visibility dropped to zero. People were hooking to pulling over, afraid the wind shift would shatter. Emergency service received hundreds of calls across Rome and nearby towns. Firefighters rushed to clear blocked roads, flooded underpasses, and fallen trees bridges. Public transport was temporarily suspended in several districts, where video shared online showed buses tragically through the rivers and a hail of water flowing through the metro entities. Meteorologists say the storm dumped over the 8 mm of rain in just 1 hour, nearly half of rain average monthly rainfall. Experts link the event of growing instability of the Mediterranean climate. Pulling the water, sea temperatures, ice sheets, storms are becoming more frequent and more destructive, said Dr. Erin Toperi, a climatologist of the University of Bologna. Video shared online showed massive hailstorm pelting the streets while the residents sheltered the cafes and metro station. In the suburbs, strong winds and the roof from buildings and left thousands without electricity. Major Roberto Giuliani was called to the emergency assessment, warning that the Rome outdated drainage system can no longer handle such tropical style weather patterns. The storm here reigned debates about the Italy preparedness for the climate extremes. As one resident wrote on social media, Rome is drawing not from the history but from the neglect. Authorities report that the wind uprooted trees, damaged roofs and caused partial power outage in some areas and Veneto region. The city transport network was paralyzed, but buses were suspended and several bridges were temporarily closed due to high water levels. Meteorologists said the storm was fueled the powerful low-pressure system that swept across southern Europe during the most unstable air from the Mediterranean Sea. As a result, more than 120 mm of rain fell in few hours, half of Venice's normal monthly rainfall. Environmental groups have again warned that climate change is exacerbating extreme weather events across Italy. Venice is not a far front to the climate crisis, said meteorologist Luca Moretti. Without district action, this flooding will only get worse. As the storm subsides, the clean begin that the forces and not yet devastation flood severe as a painful reminder of Venice's fragile struggle with the sea. An unexpected violent hailstorm that struck Rome, Italy, transformed the city's historic streets into rivers of ice and a widespread of chaos. The storm, which erupted suddenly on a Monday evening, brought golf ball-sized hailstones along the fierce gaze of torrential rain for about 13 minutes. Communities and tourists were completely caught off guard. Social media flooded with the shocking videos captured hailstones wildly pelting cars, roofs, and incidents. Couple of stones created scenes more reminiscent of winter blizzard of that October night in the Mediterranean capital. The city center, Corsa and Piazza Venezia were temporarily blackened in white, with several vehicles seen standing black in thick layer of ice. Emergency service was treated to the limit, responded to over over 500 calls in just 2 hours. We were severely minor incident due to flooded underpasses, road closures and slippery surface, confirmed Marco De Santis, spokesman for the Rome Fire Department. Dozens of fallen trees were reported and power outage occurring in parts of Ostia and Monteverde district. This is a classic Mediterranean instability event, explained Dr. Elisa Conte from Italy's National Weather Service. Here, atmosphere were loaded in energy, and when it broke, the rainfall was explosive. A severe hailstorm swept across the northern Italy, battered cities from Milan to Bologna, with ice stones the size of a tennis ball and leaving a trail of destruction across the region. The storm, which broke out late on Wednesday evening, turned streets into rivers and the ice and causing chaos in that meteorologists describe it as one of the most severe hailstorms in the Italy's recent history. Residents of Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna described scenes of panic and thunder rumble overhead, and a huge hailstorm pounded roofed cars and crops. It felt like the sky was falling, said Franessa Rossi, a resident of Parma. The noise was different. We thought the window would explode. Local authority reported hundreds of emergency calls. Firefighters worked through the night and rescue standard motorists to clear fallen trees. In Bergamo, entire neighborhoods were left without power, and strong winds and ice built up damaged power lines. Said senior meteorologist Dr. Alessandra Ferri. The impact on agriculture was severe. Vineyards and olive groves in Frascati and surrounding areas were damaged, where preliminary estimated putting crop losers into millions of euros. Local farmer Marco Berlandi said they have failed in a matter of minutes and destroyed weeks to heart. Social media was flooded with dramatic images, hail bouncing off historic statues, water flooding in Spanish steps, and the residents helping each other to navigate the street. Many compared this scene of winter storm described the summer temperatures. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying such storms throughout the Mediterranean. Climatologist Dr. Gianni Rosso noted, warmer sea and increasing atmospheric humidity increased likelihood in a sudden severe storm. By nightfall, the streets of Rome were glistered with ice and debris and remind of the powerful of nature. Residents ventured occasionally outside to assess the damage, capturing surreal images and instant landmarks under the glittering blanket of hail. We lost almost everything again, sang restaurant Elena Rossi, her voice breaking to the surrey of the match. Elsewhere, boats were tested again. The storm amount went, water taxis capacity, and debris fills and channels. Emergency crew working throughout the night and evacuate elderly residents to reinforce power lines damaged by the fallen trees. Schools and museums remain closed and cleanup operation continue. Meteorologists attributed the storm to collisions between warm Mediterranean air and cold front descending from the northern Europe, and combination that triggering extreme conditions and intense rainfall. Italy's Civil Protection Agency has issued a red alert for the much of Veneto region, warning that more storms could follow.
Ma non vieni qua, fatti là.
Authority urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel. This was one of the strongest storms in Rome has experienced in recent years, said Maria Roberta Giglietti, who covered in the emergency task force overnight, where coordinated cleanup operation and assessment structure damage throughout the city. Meteorologists at the Italian Airport's Meteorological Center attributed the storm to a sudden collision of the most Mediterranean air and the cold front from the northern Europe, which formed powerful thundercloud over central Italy. The conditions were ideal for the formation of supercell, planet senior meteorologist Dr. Elisa Monti. Such storm can develop with a few hours and cause heavy rain in a very short period of time. Several days, including Austria and EU, received more than 18 millimeters of rain in an hour, a much worse than a rainfall in the same evening. The deluge caused a temporary power outage in some parts of the city and disrupted train service to the Lazio region. Dramatic video appeared on the social media showing lightning strikes at the Colosseum, water flowing down the Venus steps in the residents formation human chain to help each other across the flooding. In the second turn of event, Italy was thrown into chaos as a first storm wreaked havoc across the picture-square landscape of Sicily and Rome. The unrelated tempest, reminiscent of a scene of Dante's Inferno, left a trail of destruction in its wake, testing the resilience of these Italian people and their determination of republic their beloved cities. Sicily, now in the straddling Mediterranean coastal line and historic Kerm, is almost hardest hit by violent tempest. The island, unusually a sure weather, were caught in the turbulent sea of fury, pouring the curse and related force. Torrential rain, accompanied by gale force wind, battered the region, caused widespread flooding, triggering landscape and uprooted centuries-old trees. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern regions of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, boost their banks and inundate towns and villages. This latest episode of flooding has left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with the thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po, the Angel, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency service to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides and hilly areas, blocked roads and isolated communities. In Venice, the city is too familiar to high water levels. Flood definitions that put the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the city with the rising tides were activated shelters to mitigate the Venice from the significant damage. However, other areas in the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to fare the higher ground. A powerful storm hit Sicily. Italy caused severe weather conditions that resulted in widespread destruction across the island. The storm, characterized by heavy rain, gale force winds, led to widespread flooding, power outage and extensive damage to infrastructure. Local authorities report that the crises of Catania and Palermo have been hit by hardest hit. In Catania, streets turned into rivers. and water level rose in 3 during years. The historic city center, which usually turned to tourists, is now eerily quiet. Emergency service tried to cope with the field. Video shared on social media showed cars submerged and residents walking throughout the waist-deep water. The meteorological service has recorded widespread up to 100 km/h, which for the agriculture to situation. Trees have been uprooted, roofs have been ripped off buildings, and debris is scattered to roadway, making the travel dangerous. The regional government has issued a red alert, urging residents to stay at home and avoid unnecessary travel. In Palermo, the storm led to similar scene to chaos. In local airport was temporarily closed due to flooding of runway, leading to flight cancellation and delays.
Le macchine se ne sono andate, sono volate.
Local authority urged residents to stay at home and avoid travel to roads and rail, more driving conditions dangerous. Emergency services were also called to help with the deal in the aftermath of the storm, including clearing roads and ASFDs affected. The hail comes as Italy, like much of Europe, experienced unseasonably cold weather. Forecasts predict that the extreme weather could continue for several days, with some storms of heavy rain expected across the country. Although Rome is no stranger to extreme weather events, the sudden intensity and hailstorm cut off guard, as residents began the process to cleaning up and repairing the damage caused by the storm. They will adapt it by keeping a close eye on weather forecast in the coming days. The storm, which has intensified in Mediterranean Sea over the past few hours, has taken a characterization as a full-fledged cyclone. Winds around the ridge and sometimes exceeded gusts of 100 km/h as the sea was through. In the coming days, severe storm will wake up to 5 to 6 meters high and peaks up to 8 meters are expected in the low Mediterranean Sea between the southwestern provinces of Campania, especially Cilento and Calabria, as well as over most of Sicily and the Ionian Sea and the entire Adriatic. Tomorrow they shift the low-pressure system towards the Adriatic with a mainly effect to eastern basins. So let's take a look at the details. The land were deepened on the gas field destroyed it. Power outage left more than 400,000 homes in the dark. Rail service were suspended and Palermo airport was severely disrupted. Businesses and county millets as losers, with tourism, agriculture and fishing particularly hard hit. City's famous citrus groves, olive trees and vineyards were flooded, raising fears to flood and shortage. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni declared flooding a national emergency, promising immediate funding to military support. "We stand with the city," she said. European Union officials also pledged to assist with the barriers linking to the disaster and urgent need to action on climate change. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying on severe Mediterranean storms, and warning seas are contributing to more intense rainfall. Dr. Rilena Rossi, a climatologist, said. What we are seeing in Sicily, a venial future is urgent action to take no taking. As the water began to resent, thousands of people forced to painful task to rebuilding, standing outside her destroyed homes in Palermo. Surveyor Rosa Ferraro said with the tears in her eyes, "The Sicilians are strong, but the storm was broken our heart."
Via la casa non so fare.
On On Wednesday afternoon, a sudden and violent hailstorm hit Rome, forced residents and tourists to seek shelters, and a peace pelted the city. The streets were quickly covered with a thick layer of hail, turning iconic locations such as Pisa, Navona, Valle di Corso, and Trastevere into frozen pools. Witnesses described the storm as absolutely terrifying. Gianni Rossi, a local taxi driver, said, "I lived in Rome all my life, but I have never seen anything like this. Car were damaged and a hailstorm bouncing on the roof like bullets." Emergency service reported more than 400 calls, including people trapped in the cars, flooded names, and a fallen trees blocked major road. While the Foucault warmed round the clock to clear the streets and help residents. Several metro stations, including Repubblica and Barbary, were temporarily closed due to water entered the tunnel, leaving passengers standing. Authorities confirmed minor injuries from the hail strikes in Slippery sidewalk. Meteorologists explained that the storm was a result of rapid interaction between the most Mediterranean air and a cold northern front, creating extremely unstable conditions. The classic connective supercell storm, short-lived but extremely intense. Venice, Italy, the famous floating city, was once again have been brought to a knit a worth of nature. During the night, a powerful storm hit Venice, accompanied by torrential rain, strong winds, and severe flooding, which left much of the city underwater. Waves crashed into a lagoon and gusts reached speed of over 100 km an hour, raising the sea level on this highest point in this year. Residents are awakened to a howling wind and southern on series of cities moist. A flooding protection system was activated to protect Venice with the rising waters. Despite the barriers, severe areas including St. Mark's Square and Rail Tower were flooded. We have seen floods before, but this was terrible. The water rose so quickly, said local shop owner Giulia Ferraro. Those business was knee deep in water. Tourists caught in a sudden storm wandered through the flooded alleys in plastic boats, with the rescue service walking through the night and the rescue standard residents to the secure boats and a had broken loose at the mooring.
Non ti vai avanti perché se no mi nascondi tutto a me, guarda.
The instability created perfect conditions to the supercell formation, explained meteorologist Elena Caruso. The hailstone size of the speed formation are extraordinary for this season. Several flights to Catania, Fortenarossa Airport were delayed due to low visibility and lighting activity, while local trains between Palermo and Messina were suspended after debris covered the track. Farmers across the central Sicily have reported severe crop damage, particularly to vineyard and citrus grove. They destroyed nearly half of the harvest, said vineyard owner Salvatore Giotto. "In 13 years, I never seen hail like this." Video shared on social media showed rivers and white hail racing through the streets in Palermo, while the residents used shovels to clear pathway in the after of snowstorm. Power outages were reported in the multiple municipalities, and several coastal towns experienced shocked by intense flooding. Experts warn that such extreme events are becoming increasingly common. Mediterranean regions like Sicily are highest vulnerable in the climate, experts said climatologist Dr. Paolo Leone.
Guardate ragazzi, guardate un po', guardate un po' ragazzi.
Italy. This week violent hailstorm struck parts of the northern and central Italy, unleashed golf ball-sized ice and town of transformed roads, vineyards and city squares into frozen rivers. Described by meteorological as one of the most intense storms in the recent years, the disaster caused widespread damage to homes, vehicles and agriculture, leaving residents stranded. It is set in fury. The hardest hit region were Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna and Tuscany. In Bologna, hail shattered windows and damaged roofs. In Milan, a wide streets of ice-covered streets completely paralyzing traffic. Sudden flooding added the chaos, flooding emergency service with the hundreds of rescue requests. Carlo Benedetti, a resident of Madeira, said it was terrified when in minutes the sky turned pitch black and the thousand near rooms of ice were crashing down. The hailstorms with such force they shattered titles and dented cars' bodies on the streets. According to meteorological from the Italy Civil Protection Department, the storm was triggered by the violent collision between warm air from the Mediterranean and a cold front moving from the Central Europe. Local farmers in the Lazio region reported severe damage on a vineyard and olive grove during accompanied harvest season. Social media flooded with the shocking footage and hail pelting on around Colosseum and Trevi Fountain with the thunder echoing across the sky. Many Romans tragically to hide their astonishment. "It's like the end of the world," said Maria, a shop owner in the Trastevere district. "The street turned completely white in an instant. I've never seen anything like that." Experts warn that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent as the climate patterns in southern Europe shift. "We are witnessing the Mediterranean region transformed into a source of violent storm," stated climatologist Elisa Romano. As snow removal crews cleared the ice debris, Rome felt that the aftermath of extreme weather damage and stark reminder of the event of Eternal City is not immune to natural fury. Tours were equally astonishing. Video circulated widely on social media showing iconic landmarks surrounded by piles and hail sparking combination of northern European winter. Authority warning of potential group damage in nearly Lazio, forming particularly vineyards and olive groves. Experts note that while hailstorms are not unusual in the central Italy, an intensity of the scale and episode underline a growing volatile weather patterns linking to climate change. A cleanup operations continue. Residents are left reflecting on yet another reminder of nature forcing the city form of the history but increasingly tested by modern climate extremes. The Italian capital was through the intel turmoil after sudden and violent hailstorm hit the Rome, covering the streets with the ice, damaged vehicles and leaving residents stranded. The storm, which arrived without warning, was declared a meteorologist is one of the most intense hail events the city has in the decades. Within minutes, the sky darkened over the central Rome before unleashing the barrage of hailstorms, some the size of golf ball. The streets around the Colosseum, Pisa, Venice and Trastevere was transformed into rivers of ice. Video shared on social media showed scooters and cars are skidding out of control while passengers rolled their shoulders in subway station. "It sounded like the gunshot of roofs," said residents. Chiara Lombardy was a car white plate was shattered. In 15 minutes everything was destroyed. Emergency service responded the hundreds of calls or rescue drivers trapped in the flooded overpasses and removing fallen branches. At least 25 people were injured, mainly is broken glass and debris.
mio, porco Dio, 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 Dio. Oh ragazzi, questo è l'ipercoppa.
Its depths disappeared under murky water. Rural Sicily was not spared entire. The contrast of the tempest of olive groves and vineyard were ravaged. The castles of Sicily, rich agriculture heritage, which helpfully to their fields were submerged, their livelihoods momentarily wiped out the storm war. The damage of the agriculture sector is cornerstone of the Sicily economy is yet to be fully equipped, but early estimates suggest a significant impact. The storm has also rekindled discussions about the climate change and the increasingly visible impact. Scientists point to rising temperature in the Mediterranean in contrast of more frequent and intense weather patterns. This storm in Sicily is not an isolated incident but horrible to changing climate in respect not geographical barriers. Amidst the chaos have been hearing displays of resilience and solidarity. Communities have together to support avoided evacuation support to provide shelters to those displaced. A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and flash floods swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romana, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport, Trevi runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as significant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses.